Time now to get you some of the day's top business news, and for that we're joined in the studio by Brian Quinn from our business desk. Hi there, Brian. Now, today we're dedicating a large part of our coverage to the French restaurant sector, which of course has been really decimated by the coronavirus lockdowns. Talk to us about the exceptional precarity, if you like, that the French restaurants are finding themselves in.
So as we know, between lockdowns in the spring and this past fall, industry groups here are estimating that the restaurant sector in France lost up to 34 billion euros in 2020. That's more than half of its yearly total, with, of course, more to come as those closures continue. And nearly 2/3 of French restaurants and cafes say they fear they may have to shut down definitively. And the president of one of France's top hospitality unions says that that's 50,000 businesses facing imminent failure, representing around 250,000 potential lost jobs. Well, for more on the story, we can cross to France 24's James André, who joins us live from the Bastille neighborhood here in Paris. James, the French restaurant industry has already been through so much over the past year. Now, with these latest announcements from the government, it really looks like there's no end in sight. What are you hearing from business owners that you've talked to out there?
Well, I've spoken to a few restaurant owners, and indeed what they're saying is that they kind of expected it, to be quite honest. None of them actually thought that they will be told to reopen on the 20th of January. But still, hearing from the mouth of the French Prime Minister that there will be no opportunity to reopen restaurants before mid-February at best was, of course, a terrible blow. Restaurant owners telling us that, well, of course, it's very tough to have closed businesses. A lot of the staff are currently at home. I spoke to Youssef, for example, this morning, who owns a small restaurant, the Marché d'Aligre, in the 12th arrondissement of Paris. Well, he was telling me that he only ever opens when the market is open, and that basically just puts a little table out and sells coffee. Of course, his revenue has plummeted massively. We also met a restaurant owner who has a one-star restaurant in Paris called Bruno Verjus. He told us that basically this was a catastrophe for the industry, because he says that basically fine cooking, for luxury restaurants is a fine art. He says it is like a competition sport. If you do not practice and train, well, you lose the skills. He was also telling us that, well, he was one of the lucky ones because he's had his restaurant for a few years now. He had some money that he had in the company in case things would get bad. But he says, for young restaurants owners who opened 2 or 3 years ago, this is, of course, a catastrophe. He's not sure that they will be able to carry on. And he also tells us that a lot of talent could be lost because these young restaurant owners, these young up-and-coming star cooks, well, a lot of them are telling him that they might choose another job finally because they're afraid that there might be other pandemics and that this might totally destroy their careers. So it is a very, very grim outlook when you speak to these restaurant owners in Paris.
Well, James, obviously the government is making a significant effort to try to see restaurants through this crisis with support for paid furloughs and solidarity funds, etc. Is it enough, and how are restaurants coping to make ends meet in this time?
Well, it's very difficult, as you said in that introduction, that basically over 70% of restaurants fear they might actually go bust. And indeed, what the restaurant owners are doing, well, they have a variety of possibilities. For example, a lot of them are doing takeaway food, and that includes high-end restaurants here in Paris that have developed new ways of transporting the food to the customer, where, in fact, the customer actually will cook his own food following step-by-step instructions in order to get that feel. But of course, there's a lot of money lost because, for example, there is no wine that is bought in these expensive restaurants. That's a big part of revenue. And of course, like things like coffees or that extra dessert someone might order, well, that's all not happening, of course. So there is heavy losses. We spoke to the couple of restaurant owners I spoke when I asked them how much their revenue had plummeted. They they said, you know, it's difficult to estimate, but they were both talking about something along the lines of 80%. Of course, that's very, very tough. Now, you were saying, yes, there is aid. The government is paying 80% of the wages of the staff that has to stop. There are loans, state-guaranteed loans for restaurant owners, and there's also an aid system where restaurant owners can claim either up to 10,000 euros or 20% of the restaurant's turnover if it is above those 10,000 euros. So indeed, there are systems in place, but it's extremely tough, and it's also extremely tough for the restaurant owners and their staff's morale.
Some light at the end of the tunnel with those vaccines, but obviously plenty of dark days ahead for the industry. We'll see what comes next. Well, to the U.S. now, where the 737 MAX debacle continues to haunt U.S. plane maker Boeing. The company has now agreed to pay $2.5 billion to settle criminal charges. The U.S. Justice Department had accused the plane maker of hiding information about its MCAS flight control software from safety regulators. That software blamed for a pair of deadly crashes that killed 346 people. Inka Oyatade has the details.
Boeing may be one step closer to the end of a scandal that has tainted its once stellar reputation and cost the lives of 346 people. The aircraft maker has agreed to pay more than $2.5 billion for what US Justice Department dubbed fraudulent and deceptive conduct. This in a bid to settle criminal charges held against Boeing after it was involved in twin crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia back in 2019 and 2018. In a statement, the Justice Department said that Boeing's employees chose the path of profits over candor by concealing material information from the FAA concerning the operation of its 737 MAX airplane and engaging in an effort to cover up their deception. Two of Boeing's technical pilots are at the heart of the Justice Department's charges. It says they deceived regulators about changes made to MCAS, a software system that has been blamed for the crashes. It's a charge Boeing has since admitted to. In a statement, the aircraft maker's chief executive David Calhoun said,
"I firmly believe that entering into this resolution is the right thing for us to do, a step that appropriately acknowledges how we fell short of our values and expectations."
Under the terms of the settlement, $500 million will be paid into a fund for the families of the crash victims, but many of them say the penalties fall short and that the 737 MAX should not have been allowed back in the air until all of the airplane's deficiencies are addressed. Many of the families say they will continue to pursue their lawsuits against Boeing.
Well, time now for a check-in on the day's trading action. European indexes in the green as a tumultuous week in geopolitics continues to show little effect on stock markets. Investors hopeful for stronger economic stimulus in the U.S. following yesterday's congressional confirmation of Joe Biden's electoral victory despite chaos in the Capitol. A strong session on Asian indexes also helping to buoy European sentiment as well, with the CAC 40 and the Frankfurt DAX up 0.5% and 0.75% respectively. London's FTSE 100 treading water at midday. And finally, for business here in Paris, one small business owner has found a rather unique way to bring attention to the struggles of non-essential businesses in the current period. France 24's reporters bring us this story on the famous teddy bears of Les Gobelins.
They're everywhere in the Parisian neighborhood of Les Gobelins. Teddy bears in place to lift the spirits of business owners and to make pedestrians smile, as the reopening of non-essential businesses remains on hold.
La nounours mobile vous attend et on va faire plein de bêtises.
For the special occasion, this movie theater on the left bank of Paris is briefly opening its doors.
Très compliqué en ce moment, c'est qu'on ne sait absolument pas quand est-ce qu'on va réouvrir aussi. Et ça, c'est quelque chose de douloureux parce qu'on ne réussit même pas à se projeter, à essayer de créer des choses parce qu'on ne sait pas si on pourra le faire en temps et en heure. Donc ça devient usant, on va dire. Ça fait longtemps qu'on n'a pas vu notre salle remplie, ça fait du bien.
The newsstand operator who came up with the idea says he wanted to bring attention to the delicate situation of small businesses in the era of online shopping.
J'ai constaté que les commerces s'endorment petit à petit, les clients nous oublient, Internet arrive, notre cerveau devient notre téléphone, et du jour au lendemain, tel marchand de bonbons, tel commerce ferme. Et je me suis dit que si on mettait des nounours et si on redonnait de l'attrait et de la curiosité aux clients, on pourrait maintenir un lien. Et c'est comme ça que les nounours des Gobelins ont démarré.
The bears have also invaded café terraces closed for health reasons, like here at the famous De Magot on the boulevard Saint-Germain.
On fait un goût câlin aux nounours quand on n'a vraiment pas le moral. Et puis voilà, ils sont tout doux. On a le privilège que notre propriétaire, voilà, elle a l'ensemble des deux magots. Donc c'est plus facile un petit peu pour nous, contrairement à nos confrères qui sont chez des propriétaires et qui tous les mois réclament leur loyer.
Still, business owners hope the brighter days aren't too far away when the terraces will be filled yet again with paying customers.
Teddy bear's probably not paying the bills, but
We
bring in
need
some
those.
spirits.
We need those big teddy
By
bears, though,
gum.
Brian, don't we?
Yeah.
this January. All right. Thank you very much indeed, Brian Quinn, there with the business and the teddy bears. We're going to take a short break. Don't go away.